and welcome back to the Python 150 series, where we are working through 150 different Python challenges from this book, Python by Example by Nichola Lacey. And today we are on challenge 5. This is challenge 5. Ask the user to enter 3 numbers, add together the first 2 numbers, and then multiply this total by the third. Display the answer as the answer is answer. So we are doing this 3 ways in this series. We're doing a beginner way, a medium way, and an advanced way. And we're going to start with the beginner way. Now the most basic way to do this is just to ask for 3 numbers. So we're going to say number 1 equals input. And we're going to say please enter the first number. And I guess we've been doing enough of these that we'll format it nicely as well. Then we're going to do second number. We're going to do number 2, number 3, and third number. Cool. And then we are going to have our result, which is equal to number 1 add number 2 multiplied by number 3, and I've put number 1 add number 2 in brackets because we need to add them together first. If we didn't have the brackets, this multiplication would happen before we added number 1 on, and then we need to print that result. So we're going to print, we'll do a format string, and we're going to print this here. The answer is something. So the answer is, and then result. Cool, and I have not wired this up properly. I need to go up to init and import these from C005, and that all should be happy. So let's give this a run. Okay, first number. Okay, so let's do 1 add 2 is 3 times 4 would be 12. So let's test this. 1 add 2 is 3 times 4. Ooh. Can't multiply sequence by non-int of type string. If you saw this coming, well done, brownie point for you. When we get a input from the console, it comes in as a string. Python's very happy to add together strings. It just joins them. So if you had the word please and the word enter in separate strings, you would just join them and you'd get please enter. But you can't multiply a string by a string. That doesn't make sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap each of these in int, so that we can, oh actually I can do something clever. If I hold Control Alt and press down, I can actually type on both lines at the same time. That saves me a little bit of time, lovely. Okay, so now, what, let's clear. Also, I've got way too much files on screen here. Let's just change that, there we go. Okay, so 1 add 2 is 3 times 4 is 12. Fantastic. Okay, so challenge complete. That is the beginner way done. Medium. Now, we did a very similar thing to this last time. If we go back to C004 and go to medium, we have this thing called a user input, where we can get an integer, and then we can use that to do that. And I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to reuse this user input class, but what I am going to do is I'm going to move this class out of this file and move it into its own file. So for that, I'm going to make a new folder inside the basics. We're in the basics section at the moment because we're only on challenge 5, and I'm going to call this user input. And this is going to be where we store our user input things. I'm going to have a new file and I'm going to call it dunder init, and that tells Python that this is a little package. And in here we're going to have our user input.py file. I'm going to run over here and I'm going to take this class, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to put it in here. It might complain. No, it hasn't. Okay, great. That can go. From this we're going to say from .userinput import user input. And then in C004, it's currently complaining because it's like, what is a user input? It's not defined here. So we're going to come up here, we're going to pop a space, and we're going to say from user input import user input. Lovely, and that is back in. Now what that means, now that we've done that, is that in C005 we can do exactly the same. We can say from .user input import user input, and we can now use that class here as well. So here I can say user input equals, oh I said this word way too many times, equals user input, and then we can say user input dot get integer, and we're going to I guess we're just going to use this message, right? So we're going to pop that in there, and we're going to store that in number 1. Can't have spaces and variable names. And we're going to copy that. We're going to do that 3 times. Number 2, number 3, and second, third. Lovely. So now we are using this to control how we get the input from a user. So that we're guaranteed it's an integer. And what this actually does, if you didn't watch the 4th challenge, if I hit, no, I can't hit F12 because that will stop my recording. I remapped the button. If we go over, if I actually right click on this and say go to definition, get integer actually has this little while loop in it that keeps trying to get the number if they don't put in the correct number. So this is a little bit more advanced than doing this. In fact, it's much better than doing that. So we've got our 3 numbers, and then we just need to get our result, and our result is very much going to be the same here. So we're going to pop that there. So now let's give this a go, and I'm just going to blitz through the beginner one. There we go. Medium, please enter the first number. So you can see it's given us a new line with number as well here, which is nice. So we're going to test it using the same test data. So 1, add 2, times by 4, gives us 12. Lovely. That is medium done. And I guess the point of this challenge is looking at like how we can take a bit of code and store it in its own little package, its own little module, and we can then use that within multiple bits of code. And we can do the same for advanced. In 004, we made something called a calculation. We made an addition, we made a number pair, and we made a calculation result. And we are going to move all of these into their own classes, into their own modules. So I'm going to make a new folder inside the basics, and we're going to call it maths. Let's call it mathematics. Why not? We're going to make a new file in here called _init_.py, or dunder init, if you will. And then in here, we're going to make a class called number pair.py. We're going to go over to C004, and we're going to take our number pair data class, and we're going to cut that, and we're going to come over here and we're going to paste it. It's not going to be happy because it's not going to know what a data class is, so we're going to import that. It also wants to know what a user input is, and that is in the user input module. So we need to say from ... because we need to go up a file level, and then we're going to say from user input import user input. Lovely stuff. So that is our number pair. We're also going to add, what else have we got to add? We've got a calculation result. I'm just going to cut that. Oh, no, not that, this. And we're going to come into mathematics, and we're going to make a new file, and we're going to call this calculation result.py. And we're going to paste this into here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to make sure that everything's happy. Yep, that can go, that can go. What else have we got? We've got a addition and a calculation. So I'm going to cut both of these. I'm going to make a new folder, not a new folder, I'm going to make a new file. And I'm just going to call this calculation.py. And I'm going to paste these both in here. It doesn't know, a lot of these things, it's like, what is this? So we're just going to import them quickly. Okay, number pair and calculation result are from the same thing. In fact, it should find them easily, so I can just control dot on that as well. No, it's doing the whole thing. I'm just going to type it. So we're going to go from dot number pair import number pair, and from dot calculation result import calculation result. There we go. Okay, so this is unhappy now because it doesn't know what a number pair is. Look at our code now. It's there's so much less lines in our file here. So we need to import number pair and addition. We need to make sure that we're exporting them in our init file. So we're going to say from calculation, import calculation and addition. We're going to say from, actually that needs a dot, from calculation result, import calculation result, and we're going to say from number pair, import number pair. Cool. So now we've got a little mathematics package that exposes these. Then in 004 we can come over here and we can say from dot mathematics import calculation calculation result number pair. And I don't think we need to import calculation, even though we've got this class calculation. We don't need to import that. We only want the addition. So we're going to just import addition. In fact, we don't need calculation result either, apparently, because it was, we don't need these either. Lovely. And we don't need annotations, I believe, because we're not declaring any classes. Lovely. So that's actually made everything a lot simpler. This is all happy now. And now in C005, we can actually use these as well. So we in 005 for the in 004 for the advanced, we have this thing called a number pair, and it can get something from user input. Is this happy? That is happy. It's got it. Okay, cool. It just looked like a funny color to me, but that's okay. So we're going to use this same idea. We're going to come over to 005 and we're going to get our number pair. Now these are going to be the two numbers that we add together. In fact, we're going to pretty much want the first three lines here, because all of that is fine. We want to import addition and number pair, so we're going to say from dot mathematics import addition and number pair. And now we need to do a multiplication, and what we're going to do is we're going to make another calculation type. So we've got an addition, which is a type of calculation, and a calculation expects us to have a method called calculate, and it expects to be given a number pair in order to do that calculation. So we're going to make a new class, and we're going to call it multiplication. Multiplication. And that is a calculation, and it needs to have a calculate method. I'm going to type C, and it should, yep, it's like, hey, you need a calculate method. I'm going to press tab, and that's going to like put in most of the code for me, or at least the method signature, which is this thing here. And now what we're going to do is we are going to operate on our number pair. Now in order to perform a multiplication, we're going to have a multiplication result equals number pair dot number 1 multiplied by number pair dot number 2. We are then going to return a calculation result where the result is our multiplication result. And that's it, that's our multiplication. So we can come back into C005 and we can also import that multiplication. Okay, we're not using it, so we're going to come down here. I'm going to say multiplication equals multiplication. Okay, now this says any. That's bad, and you can see it's a different color to addition. Addition says it's a class, and it knows it's a class. This says any, and it's the wrong color, and that to me tells me that there's some kind of issue. And the issue is that we've made the calculation in the calculation file, but inside the init of the mathematics package, we have not imported it. So up from .calculation, we're going to also import multiplication. And now if we go back to C005, we've come up here, we're importing from mathematics multiplication, and we can see now this is a class, so it's found it and it knows what it is, which is great. Now, multiplication.calculate, and we need a number pair. So we want to get our user input, and we actually want to have that separate. So we're going to say user input equals user input, and then we're going to assign it here. That means that we've got a reference to it up here, so we can use it down here. Okay, so this is our addition result. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our third number equals user input dot get integer, and we're going to say please enter a number to multiply by. Yeah, that works fine. It doesn't specify. Does it specify? It doesn't specify that it is a. There has to be an integer. It just says 3 numbers. I'm gonna, for the purposes of this, I'm gonna assume that it's a number rather than a floating point. Although we could for this. We should maybe extend this to. We should maybe have a get float. Let's do that. So let's go to user input. And let's extend this. So, we're going to basically copy this, and we're going to come down here, and we're going to rename this to get float. A floating point number is a number with a decimal. And we're going to say, please enter any number invalid number, please enter any number. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. And then we just need to cast this to a float here rather than an integer. Okay, and then we get our float. Now, I had the foresight last time when we were making our calculation result to make the type of float. It's easy to convert an integer to a float. You can't just convert a float to an integer, because an integer to a float, you don't actually lose any information. Whereas if you convert if you convert 1.5 to an integer, you need to lose the 0.5, and therefore you lose information. So you can't do that. And the same with our number pair. I believe they're floats. Yep, they're floats. So that's all just going to work. And now we've extended the user input with a get float method. I can come over here to our advanced method that we're working on, and instead of get integer, we're going to say get float. Please enter a number to multiply by, and then what we're going to do is we're going to calculate. So we're going to make a new number pair. In fact, no, I could do this in fewer lines, but I don't think it's very clear. I don't think it's as readable as it could be. So number pair number 1 is equal to addition result dot result, and number 2 is equal to third number. So they are the two numbers that we want to multiply together, and then we are going to calculate with our number pair. Okay, so we could drop the amount of lines here. First of all, it might make sense just to separate where we're creating new instances of classes from where we're actually using them, just so that the logic is separate from the dependencies here. Secondly, we're getting our number pair and we're calculating on that. Now, one thing we could do here, we don't really need to store a reference to number pair. In fact, I've used this twice for 2 different things, which is not great. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this, I'm going to replace that here, and we're just going to pop that on a new line. So addition result equals adder.calculate, and our number pair is equal to number pair dot from user input. So that brings that down to, well, technically it's 1 line, I've split it over 2 lines. So we get our result, we get our third number. We could just take this third number here, and we could just pop it there if we really wanted to. So that number 2 is equal to user input.getFloat. Please enter a number to multiply by. So we kind of got 2 sections here. This is where we prepare all the different classes that we need to use, and then down here is where we use them. And for some of them, because we're only performing 1 operation, we don't need to keep a reference to them. we can just do it in the actual method itself, which is fine. Fine for this particular use case. There are a million different ways to do this, and I'm sure there are a million better ways to do this. This is going to give us a result, so we're going to say result equals multiplication.calculate, and then we're going to say result, not return, result dot display, and that should display our result. And I think it should, the answer is answer. Was that what we had in number 4? The total is answer. Okay, no problem. So we're going to just extend our calculation result. There it is. So we're going to have a message, which is going to be a string, and it's going to have a default value of I prefer the answer is because that's more general. And then we're going to come down here. We're going to get rid of the total, and we're just going to put in message. Message space self result. And then in C004, I just need to update this where we used it. So display, and we need to say the total is. Been backtracking a lot today, and that's what happens when you write code that has shares dependencies. You have to do a lot of fixing in different bits that you're not actually working on. So here's our advanced. We are displaying. We don't need to add anything to this. We can use the default, and that should work nicely. So let's give this a go. We're going to just put in ones for the beginner. We're going to put in ones for the medium. The answer is 2. 1 add 1 times 1. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And now we're going to use our test data, which is 1, 2, and 4, and we should get the answer 12. 12.0. That feels like unnecessary because we've only put in. Oh, actually, that's a good point. Because we're using floats now, we can actually test this. So let's do 1.5 add invalid integer. Wait. Number pair from user input. Okay, right. We're going to go to our number pair. We're going to, I guess because we're storing these as floats, it kind of makes sense to call get float here and not get integer. I guess, it's not very clear though. Let's rename this to integer from user input. And then we'll copy this, and we will call this float from user input. And we'll update these to get float. Lovely. So now we can come over here. We've got integer from user input. We're actually going to say float from user input. And that way we'll get a float rather than an integer. So let's cancel out of that. Let's clear the screen and let's try again. So 1, 1, 1 for beginner, 1, 1, 1 for medium. Okay, so we're going to do 1.5, and we're going to add that to, what would 2.5 give us? 4? Yeah, let's add that to 2.5. And then if we do 4 times 3, we should still get 12. So I don't know why I want the answer 12. In fact, can it give us any other answer but 12? Let's test that by doing 4 times 4, which should be give us 16. Here we go. The answer is 16. Boom. So we can now multiply with decimals and get a nice answer. I'm not going to worry about the output there. That is challenge 5 solved. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next challenge. Thank you for watching.